Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in China in the past 24 hours. We've got a packed run today, and it starts where global strategy is really getting tested right now, in the space between Washington, Beijing, and Taipei. Because what's happening there isn't just about arms sales or defense budgets. It's about whether U.S. security commitments in Asia are predictable or becoming part of a larger bargaining table between two superpowers. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te is openly pushing for approval of a $14 billion U.S. arms package. He's doing it with a very specific message. Taiwan is not backing down on defense, and it's not shifting its political stance under pressure from Beijing. But the complication here is that President Trump has recently framed Taiwan arms sales as something that can be used as leverage with China. That single shift introduces a different kind of uncertainty into a relationship that has long been treated as relatively stable. From Taipei's perspective, this is about timing and deterrence. The island is accelerating drone programs, surveillance systems, coastal defense upgrades, and unmanned maritime systems. There's also a political layer here. Taiwan is trying to show Washington that it is absorbing more of its own defense burden, while also signaling to Beijing that pressure tactics are not changing the core trajectory. Beijing, meanwhile, is treating all of this as a sovereignty issue that sits at the center of its strategic identity. So what you're really seeing is a three-way pressure system forming. Washington balancing deterrence and negotiation, Taipei trying to lock in guarantees, and Beijing reading every move as part of a long-term contest over legitimacy and control in the Western Pacific. Now zoom out, because this isn't just about Taiwan. Across the Indo-Pacific, China is steadily expanding the footprint of its security presence in ways that are less about dramatic confrontation and more about normalization. Think long game, not flashpoints. In the Southwest Pacific, China is leaning heavily on policing cooperation, training missions, and what look like civilian or humanitarian deployments, like hospital ships and goodwill visits. But layered into that is a strategic effect. The goal is to reduce the space where U.S. and allied influence feels default or automatic. Move into the Indian Ocean, and the pattern becomes more overtly military. China has moved well beyond counter-piracy operations. It now operates sustained naval deployments, including submarine activity, supported by its base in Djibouti. It also maintains access points and dual-use infrastructure through partnerships in places like Pakistan and Sri Lanka. These aren't isolated moves. They form a logistics and presence network that supports sustained far seas operations. Closer to Australia and New Zealand, the tone shifts again. The activity becomes more assertive, not just presence but demonstration. Showing capability, testing response times, normalizing proximity. The strategic effect is subtle but important. It slowly changes what regional actors treat as normal Chinese behavior in their near seas. So while headlines often focus on single incidents, the underlying shift is about persistence. China is building a system where its presence is expected, routine, and structurally embedded. Now bring this back to Washington, because there's another layer here that is less visible, but potentially just as consequential. The U.S. has reportedly paused new additions to its entity list, even though internal processes have already flagged more than 100 Chinese-linked firms as national security risks. Some of these are tied to advanced AI development, semiconductor production, and even suspected support networks linked to Russian drone activity. Names like DeepSeek and CXMT come up repeatedly in these assessments. The concern from analysts is not just about individual companies, it's about timing. If enforcement tools are approved internally but not published, then the restriction system becomes less predictable. And in this space, predictability is power, especially when dealing with export-controlled chips, AI models, and dual-use manufacturing capacity. The strategic tension here is clear. Washington is trying to avoid unnecessary escalation while also maintaining pressure on China's technology ecosystem. But delays in enforcement create gaps that can be exploited, especially in fast-moving sectors like AI and advanced semiconductors. Now shift inside China, because domestically, the system is tightening in a very different way. Xi Jinping's internal discipline campaign has expanded far beyond traditional corruption enforcement. What started as anti-graft work has now moved into political behavior, ideological loyalty, and even personal conduct. Officials are being investigated not just for financial wrongdoing, but for factional behavior, failure to implement directives, and in some cases, even so called superstitious practices. This matters because it tells you something about the internal logic of the system right now. It is not just about removing corruption, it is about eliminating ambiguity in loyalty. The scale is significant, with reports of nearly 1 million officials disciplined in a single year. That creates a governing environment where compliance is not passive, it is actively enforced. At the same time, China's intelligence footprint abroad continues to expand. Recent reporting shows a steady stream of espionage cases across Europe, North America, and East Asia. South Korea has seen convictions involving surveillance of U.S. military facilities. Germany and Norway have reported arrests tied to technology acquisition and suspected intelligence activity. In the U.S., cases continue to surface involving foreign influence operations and undeclared intelligence work. What stands out here is not just the individual cases, it's the pattern. Analysts describe a system that relies on scale, multiple actors, multiple pathways, some highly trained, others opportunistic or loosely connected. The effect is a wide net that increases both reach and exposure. And yes, some of that exposure is happening because counterintelligence capabilities in partner nations are improving. So you get a dynamic where activity increases, but so does detection. Now zoom out to economics and alliances. The G7 is actively trying to reduce dependency on Chinese-controlled critical minerals. Rare earths are at the center of this. China still dominates both extraction and processing. That creates structural leverage over industries ranging from defense manufacturing to electric vehicles. The G7 response is a coordinated attempt to build alternative supply chains and stabilize pricing mechanisms outside of Chinese control. But even within that effort, alignment is not uniform. Some states are moving faster than others. Others are cautious about disrupting existing trade flows too aggressively. And that tension showed up in a very specific moment at a recent summit, where discussions around Chinese electric vehicle imports revealed how sensitive industrial balance has become between economic openness and strategic dependency. Finally, there's Iran. China is maintaining a careful balance here. It continues to support Iranian sovereignty and plays a diplomatic role in regional discussions, but it is not endorsing Tehran's push for a formal alliance structure with Beijing at its center. Instead, the messaging is focused on regional security frameworks and broader stability. That positioning reflects something consistent in Chinese foreign policy: strategic flexibility, engagement without binding commitments, influence without formal alliance obligations, especially in regions where energy security and global shipping routes are directly involved. Even cybersecurity and internal policing reflect that same logic at home. Chinese authorities recently publicized a series of cybercrime cases involving malware known as Silver Fox, used to target enterprises and financial personnel through phishing and fake software distribution. These operations highlight how domestic security enforcement and cyber defense are tightly integrated into broader state security priorities. Thanks for listening and being part of this growing community. If you found this valuable, I'd really appreciate you leaving a review or sharing a quick comment. It helps others discover the show. We also publish a daily written intel brief on Substack at restrictedhandling.substack.com, where we go deeper on Russia and China, along with analysis on Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK. Have a great day. We appreciate you being here.
Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today. That's jerry.ai/libsyn.